To understand the structure of the Bible, you first have to look at the logistics of its creation. It is a library of 66 separate books, written by dozens of different authors over a span of thousands of years. But inside this collection is a mathematical anomaly. We find a single scroll composed of exactly 66 chapters that mirrors this structural scale chapter for book. The prophet Isaiah composed this text in roughly 740 BC, during a period of political upheaval and social collapse in the ancient kingdom of Judah. This creates what we might call a thematic fractal. In this model, the macro-narrative of the entire biblical library is reflected in the micro-narrative of this one scroll. If these structural parallels hold up under scrutiny, it suggests the entire biblical text follows a unified architectural design that transcends its individual human authors. The Old Testament consists of exactly 39 books. This first section of the Bible is heavily focused on the law, human rebellion, and the reality of divine judgment. The book of Isaiah naturally divides its first major section at this exact boundary, the 39th chapter. Isaiah chapters 1 through 39 serve as a prosecuting argument. The text confronts the idolatry of surrounding nations, establishing the weight of God's holiness. These opening chapters function as a diagnosis of failure. They summarize the narrative arc of the Old Testament by showing the inability of the law to save a people who refuse to follow it. Then, at chapter 40, the tone pivots from condemnation to relief. "Comfort ye, my people." This perfectly aligns with the Bible's 40th book, Matthew, which opens the New Testament by quoting this exact Isaiah prophecy to introduce John the Baptist. The remaining 27 chapters of the Isaiah scroll mirror the 27 books of the New Testament, focusing on grace, pardon, and the arrival of a Messiah. This second section reaches its climax in chapter 53, which provides a detailed portrait of the suffering servant. The text describes this figure's death with clinical accuracy. It predicts the piercings and physical stripes he would endure, his silence before his accusers, and his burial in a rich man's grave. Isaiah recorded these precise details 7 centuries before the Romans ever introduced the practice of crucifixion to the region. This shift at chapter 40 changes the entire direction of the scroll, moving from the diagnosis of human rebellion to the provision of a cure. This pattern continues to the very end of the scroll, chapter 66. When we compare the final chapter of Isaiah to the 66th book of the Bible, Revelation, we find they share the same destination. Both texts conclude with the exact same promise, a cosmic restoration that creates a new heavens and a new earth. These thematic alignments suggest that the Isaiah scroll functions as a structural blueprint, a prophetic framework that mirrors the divisions of the entire biblical library. In the 1st century, Jesus of Nazareth entered a synagogue and opened this specific scroll to announce his work. After reading from Isaiah, he told the room, "Today this scripture is fulfilled in your hearing." He identified himself as the primary subject of the entire blueprint. This level of structural alignment is why early Christians gave the book of Isaiah a specific title, the Fifth Gospel. The book of Isaiah remains a 2,700-year-old signature. It offers physical evidence that the biblical story of judgment and restoration followed a specific structural plan from its very first pages.